Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Tonight, we're going to discuss the Nancy Guthrie ransom note. We have an expert analysis, statement analysis expert, Bob Shaffer, Lieutenant Retired Bob Shaffer. He's going to be joining us. He's been here with us in the past. He has gone over the two notes that were sent into the radio news stations, and we're going to get his expert opinion on it tonight. But before we get into it, I want to say a special thank you to the replay viewers, the channel members, the moderators, and all who positively engage in this community. Ed Wallace is going to be joining us in a few minutes. He had a little bit of a technical issue, but I wanted to, before we bring on our special guest, talk about a report that was issued in the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was. And this report went over some of the blunders, if you will, by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And these blunders are not anything that we don't know about, because Ed and myself, and we discussed this in depth. Here he is, Ed, joining. Oh, Ed is still having technical difficulties. We can't see Ed Wallace. I don't know what's going on. But we have a blank screen for Ed Wallace. So I'm going to try to remove him and add him back. Hold on while we try to work through this technical difficulty. But yeah, let's take a quick look here on the screen at this news report that goes over some of the blunders. And it involves blood at the crime scene. It involves mistakes that were made by investigators when they thought this is just another routine senior citizen who wandered off from her home. And those are costly mistakes. Ed, welcome in. I know you're having some troubles. I'm glad you're back. Are you here, Ed?
Yeah. I don't know what happened. I got the blue screen of death here and then rebooted. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you fine. So I'm going to play this video, and we're going to get right back to everybody as we work through this.
It's now been more than 6 months since Savannah Guthrie's mother was kidnapped from her Arizona home, and still no major break in the case. So has the investigation been botched? A blistering report in the Wall Street Journal accuses the Sheriff's Department of making a string of costly blunders early on. Reporter Andrea Grimes, a new addition to the Inside Edition team, has the details.
Was the search for Savannah Guthrie's kidnapped mom botched from day one? A Wall Street Journal investigation says detectives reportedly failed to see the significance of blood spots clearly visible in the doorway of Nancy Guthrie's home. According to the Wall Street Journal, detectives in Pima County, Arizona, initially thought the blood spots were due to a bloody nose or some other minor injury unrelated to the kidnapping. Only days later, they determined the blood was Nancy's and was most likely from the night she was abducted. Asked about the alleged missteps, President Trump promised more FBI resources.
Some people haven't liked the way the local communities run it. They haven't liked the way the sheriffs run it. But we would like to give them the benefit. But we're there anytime they need us. It's a terrible thing.
Sheriff Chris Nanos is hoping the quirky writing style in those two just released ransom notes may ring a bell with someone.
There's a number of pieces of information in these notes that it just might jar someone to say.
So, Ed, I want to bring you back on. And before we bring Bob in, just quickly, we could just go over this. Look, we are well aware, and people in the chat are acknowledging it. 6 months ago, we were talking about how this was botched in the first 24 to 48 hours. The really, really extreme mistakes that were made by the man in charge here, Chris Nanos, and also his the people who he supervises. This situation, and they don't ever mention that doormat in any of these news pieces. I've never heard anybody on the news recently talk about that doormat, still sitting there on that front vestibule, never analyzed. Before we bring in Bob, can you just, talk about this Wall Street Journal report and how they talk about the investigators making this seem like, oh, it was a bloody nose from in the past. It has nothing to do with this. And that she possibly just wandered off. How crucial is that?
Well, the Wall Street Journal in their article spoke to a law enforcement, quote unquote, subject matter expert. And he said because of these mistakes in the first 3 days, that the crime scene was botched. I would agree with that. I don't know how someone can leap to a determination that the blood on the portico tile by the mat was placed there by a bloody nose that had nothing to do with the incident. See, here's the problem with these missing person cases, right? Because they start off as missing person cases. And in many of the cases, they once the investigation becomes more organized and more information is obtained, it'll transition into a murder in many cases. And it's those first 24 hours that didn't get the forensic attention that was needed here to help identify, locate all the possible physical and forensic evidence that may have been there. So, I mean, like ignoring the blood by the and the plant life, okay, by the entrance to the house for 3 days, all right, for 3 days is unexcusable, okay? I don't know how decisions were made as to what was pertinent and what was not. I don't know how a determination was made to, close the crime scene as fast as it was. It just seems like they really gave no effort here in classifying this as a potential abduction, kidnapping, assault, and possible murder. Initially, the thoughts of those crimes occurring at this location weren't given any serious consideration.
Yeah, and you expect more out of your elected officials and the people who are sworn to protect and serve the community. The people of Pima County, not only people of Pima County should be disappointed, and I know they are, but the whole world is watching. This is a case that's on the national and international stage. And we know from Pima County, the deputy's president, Sergeant Aaron Cross, that's the organization that represents the Pima County deputies. He said, we have a very young department. 45% of the commissioned deputies have less than 5 years on the job. And in this case, most of the detectives, if not all, that were on the initial homicide investigation have less than 3 years experience. So that is telling, and also not surprising that these mistakes were made, because we looked at the figure, we looked at the numbers. The statistics don't lie. They don't handle a lot of homicides. They handle a lot of burglaries. They handle a lot of property crimes, but they're not handling homicides left and right.
Well, the only way you get good at anything is repetition and practice. Okay. Exactly. So if you're in a small jurisdiction that doesn't have high volume crime, you're not going to get that. And if you have less than 3 years on the job and you're thrown into an investigative position, I mean, like there's no like investigative wand that I can like sprinkle pixie dust over investigators and now poof, you're a super investigator.
Right.
Okay. It just doesn't work that way. You have to, get out there in the streets. You gotta use up a bunch of shoe leather. You got to shake hands with doorknobs. You got to interview people. You got to canvass. You got to build those skill sets.
Right.
You just don't get this from reading a book or coming out of an academy and say, okay, I'm super investigator. It doesn't work that way.
You can learn in the classroom, but hands-on experience handling cases is what does it. The sheriff also had a problem with one of the aviation unit helicopter pilots. The deputy who works in the aviation unit was transferred on January 25th of 2026 by Sheriff Nanos because of he's very spiteful, and we know this. They had an argument or a disagreement. He transferred the one and only aviation pilot, the helicopter pilot. So now on February 1st, the helicopter was delayed in going up in the air. So it's horrible. Listen, I told Bob we were going to spend 3 minutes. We doubled it, almost tripled it. So Bob is waiting. Ed, I want you to introduce our esteemed guest.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we've had Bob on the show before. He's a retired lieutenant from the Loveland Police Department. He worked there many years, and his specialty was going over writings, not for handwriting analysis, but the content of the writing and what he can glean from the content of the writing. He's a senior instructor at LSAT. Investigative statement analysis is what he does, right? And he travels the United States instructing law enforcement, private investigators in linguistic statement analysis. That is his discipline, and he is a subject matter expert in that. So with that, we're bringing him on right now.
Bob, welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot. It's awesome to be back.
Yeah, our audience loves you, Bob, and I apologize for I did my Italian heritage came out, and I just kept talking, so I apologize for that. But there's so much to unpack.
Interesting.
There's so much to unpack as it pertains to this case, and the mistakes that were made are just unbelievable. And you hope that things would be done better. But I reached out to you a little bit before the weekend, and I asked you quickly if you could take a look at those two notes, and you immediately got back to me. I was talking with you back and forth in South Carolina from my hotel room, and you came up with some stuff, and I just wanted you, if you could, just to give a brief overview of your take, and then we'll go into your notes that you shared with us. But
Sure.
Here we are 6 months into this. The news released almost all of the content. Ed, correct me if I'm wrong. There was little bits that we didn't know about, like that, very small little bits of these notes that we didn't know about. And, for them to come out on the 6-month mark in this investigation and release these officially, and the sheriff even said, "Oh, I wanted to release them because the news had it, and we just wanted to make sure it was right." Well, it was the same exact thing. So your thoughts on that, Lieutenant Bob?
Yeah. So, just so your listeners know that I look at these notes, and the foundation of what I do is to determine how credible are they. That's the first level I look at is what's the language tell me, and again, this is not just my opinion. I'm not just guessing at it. It's based on research, language research, and so the first level for me, that 30,000 foot view is are they credible? And it's my impression, and I could always be wrong, but it's my impression that the actual ransom note, or that the kidnapper or kidnappers asked for money, that lacks credibility. And based on the language, not the content, I'm sorry, not the story and not the image they're trying to create, but the language that they used and the way it's structured tells me that it lacks credibility. Let me put it this way: it is not symptomatic of what we would expect from an actual ransom note. It's more it more gives the impression of what a person thinks a ransom note would actually be like if it was really the case. In other words, it's my impression it's probably somebody who's not responsible, but is thinking hypothetically, hey, if I actually kidnapped her, what should the ransom note sound like? It's not based in reality. And there's a number of different things that lead me to believe that. And then the other note is I just call it the apology note. And for me, that actually, I think there's a distinct possibility they're written by two different people. And the apology note, to me, has more credibility than the actual ransom note. And there's you can ask me specific questions as to why I think that, but that's my overview.
Yeah, and the chat is already going crazy with the questions. Hold your questions for the last 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. We promise you folks that at the end of the show, towards the back end, we will take your questions with hashtag Ed, hashtag Bob, and hashtag DutyRon. But we'll get to everything. We have a lot to unpack. and we have a good 45 minutes left in the broadcast. So, Ed, do you have any questions for Bob before we go into his analyses?
Well, you know, we talked about this the other day, Bob. You know, from my experience in training with major case investigations, kidnappings, ransoms, even extortion notes, it just the syntax of the note, the first one, not the apology note,
Sure.
just didn't come off as authentic. As I like what kidnapper would demand the ransom of a certain amount in a certain amount of days, and if they didn't get it to them in that certain amount of days, then the ransom goes up, and they're given a few more days to get the ransom.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that. It's usually, here's your deadline, and if you don't give us to us at this day, the victim is dead, or we're going to start sending you fingers, or whatever the case is. Right? I've never seen a note like this. Okay.
Well, yeah. So I don't try to make sense of why somebody would write what they would write. I actually look at the language, the word choice, the content, the structure, how the story was put together, things like that, rather than trying to make sense of it, of the story. But right off the bat, one thing that really struck me hard was they said, "Hello, Savannah." I've never experienced a ransom note or anything like that where there's a greeting like that. Hello. You don't, as a kidnapper, it's not symptomatic of a kidnapper. Kidnapping is an extremely violent act. I mean, it's very violent, and it's very heartless and mean and cruel and extremely emotional. And for someone to open a ransom note with, like, they're writing a letter to, like on a Christmas card or something, is not symptomatic of a person thinking with that level of, let's call it, evil. Okay. And then real quickly, the second thing was they used the word ransom, and that is extremely rare, almost unheard of, for a kidnapper to actually use the word ransom. That's in line 1 and line 4. I don't know if you can scroll to the analyzed copy of it somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll get there. Yeah,
I'm here to.
There you go.
I'm here to serve, Bob.
That's what we do, right? Yes. So right off the bat, a person's gut feeling is usually, there's a reason why you trust that gut feeling.
One second.
I think your gut feeling is good.
Bob,
Yep, go ahead.
Hold your thought just for a second.
Yeah.
Because people are going to get confused. Can you just explain, okay, this is now that first page that I was showing. This is your week, right, Bob?
Okay, so explain what they're looking at here.
Yes, because people are going to be like, what's with the lines? And so before you go into it, just quickly, give a quick overview of that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. So this is the actual analysis. This is a search. This is like searching the crime scene. And a crime scene, you identify what you think is a piece of evidence or not, like blood drops, right? No evidence. But anyway, that's a snide remark. But so I'm searching the crime scene here. And I'm identifying, when you search a crime scene, you identify what you think is evidence, you mark it, you photograph it, and you log it. And that's what this is. It's just our crime scene is on an 8.5 by 11-inch page. And so this is the search pattern. And they search it, the statement word by word, left to right, top to bottom. And when I see something that I know is significant of a particular thought process, then I mark it just like a crime scene.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Bob.
Yeah.
All right. So continue where I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, I just wanted to start out with kind of giving people an idea of what it is I look for, and the word hello and then the word ransom. I can't say with 100% of certainty, but it's highly likely that is not language that an actual kidnapper would use. And so right off the bat, it lacks credibility in terms of the authenticity of the letter.
Okay. And now you have on the side here all of your notes, passive, 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 and there's a lot of lines going all over the place.
Yeah. So let's start with And this is kind of a grammatical technicality. Okay, so bear with me. But passive language is highly, or what am I trying to say here? It is extremely consistent with deceptive thought, meaning the person is attempting to create an impression that does not really exist. Now, passive language technically is an action without a cause. And I'm going to, so for your listeners, I'm going to draw an example here. So in line 1, it says, she will be held for ransom. Now, if a person is going to make that sound credible, they would say, we are holding her for ransom. They attach themselves to that action. And so every time we see the word passive in the notes in the margin there, they've used passive language. They are not attaching themselves to that action. And that shows a lack of credibility and a lack of commitment to that piece of information. So another one, the ransom, line 5, the ransom will be increased, not we will increase the ransom. They're detaching themselves from that piece of information. And yet I would say maybe, if there's 1 or 2 passive occurrences in the statement that we can maybe pass that off as coincidence, but I think I've got 11 of them there from beginning to end, which tells me that it's saturated with language that lacks credibility and shows that whoever wrote it is not willing to attach themselves or take ownership of that piece of information, which equates to deception. They're trying to create an impression that doesn't exist. And so, again, kind of a technicality, but I know that a lot of your listeners will maybe understand that. As we make our way through this story, another thing that really stood out to me, you'll notice in line where it says, we have your mother, it's line 1, I guess. Line 1 says, we have your mother, the word we, and you follow that line down the page into the second line. It says, we will be holding her for a maximum of 7 days. And then suddenly, as we make our way down to, I've got line 10, it's the third line from the bottom. It just follow the line down there. It says, you will not be able to contact me. That's singular. And to me, that is very suspicious that the word we could be possibly used to create a different impression about who did this. I think there's a good possibility this is a singular person trying to create the impression that there's more than one person involved.
And I tend to agree with you. For those of you in the chat that are following along, let us know what you think. If you agree, press a 1. If you disagree, press a 2. We always like to hear everybody's side and how you guys feel about it. This is fascinating stuff, Bob, and it's the precise reason why we asked you to come on, because this is not our expertise, and we love to listen to your input as it pertains to this.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind that this analysis, it could be used to identify, along with other evidence, consistency in language. Like the sheriff is saying, this language might be consistent with somebody that they talk this way or they write this way, and it could help to maybe identify somebody. But the letter in and of itself isn't going to. There's not going to be some secret. Like Ed said, you wave the magic wand and the kidnapper's name shows up. But it could help to identify and whittle down a suspect list. There was something I thought was interesting, but it'd be in my line 8, where it says, if we is not received by the last deadline on Monday the 9th at 5 p.m., she will be killed. And I had that, she will be killed underlined because, again, it didn't say we will kill her. There's a lack of commitment there. And so I'm not so sure that's trustworthy. But as we make our way past that, it says your mother is aware of this. And that tells me that there's been a conversation, if this is legitimate, that they had a conversation with her and they actually told her, we're going to kill you. Now, and I'm not a kidnapper, but I don't know what purpose that would serve. You want to keep a hostage is somebody that is really difficult to maintain. I mean, it's not like you just stick them in a room and ignore them. They have to be maintained. They have to be taken care of. And what you don't want to do is cause panic or make that hostage more difficult to deal with. And so threatening, she has no control over that. So why would you tell the kidnap? I'm sorry, the person being kidnapped. Why would you tell them, if we don't get the ransom, we're going to kill you? That doesn't serve a purpose except to create anxiety, stress, emotion, which makes them more difficult to deal with. You create problems for yourself when you do that. Again, not symptomatic of what a kidnapper, the thought process behind a kidnapper. And so that, to me, kind of, not that they couldn't do it, but it wouldn't serve a purpose. And I think it's more put in there for emotional, to try to motivate them to get the ransom, not because it necessarily happened. So.
Right. And I discussed this with you, and I've said it publicly several times. I feel, and this is my personal opinion, is that it was an opportunist. This is somebody who said, look, we have a high profile case. There's a lot of information that's publicly available out there. And I'm going to send this letter in hopes of getting $4 million and maybe perhaps $6 million from Nancy Guthrie's daughter, who is, as everybody knows, a public figure that makes millions of dollars doing what she does. So that's my opinion. And again, I like you said, Bob, none of us know, but from, looking at the wording and the way this is all constructed and put together, my opinion, and I know, Ed, you probably feel pretty similar to that, these are this is an opportunist trying to get money that's possibly more highly likely to be outside of the United States rather than inside the United States.
Okay, if that's the case, then why would they put information like the smartwatch on the floor, a white smartwatch on the floor, and then the floodlight broken, trying to establish that they were in that house or they were on that property, and they're using this information to try and show that they knew these things. Now, I mean, obviously, if that information is false, the investigators would know this right away. If they did a proper crime scene investigation and documented this thing, if a watch was on the floor, if that floodlight was broken, that should be in the investigator's notes and documented, photographed, the whole 9 yards, if they processed the crime scene properly, but which appears they didn't do in the first 3 days. But so they're offering this here as trying to, as a bona fides, if you will. I was there. I know what I'm talking about, right? But they don't offer proof of life.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's many, many different possibilities here. And again, that was just my, these are my thoughts. I know everybody has thoughts as it pertains to this, and we could see it. It's evident in the chat. So, but there are a few things that are pretty clear and concise. There was a lot of information leaked out. There was the FBI out at that location. We saw them looking at floodlights. We know publicly that the news reported that one of the floodlights was broken in the backyard. We never heard any official confirmation about the white Apple Watch from police. We may have gotten confirmation from people reporting on it, but the investigators never came out and said anything about the contents of the interior of the home. So at the end of the day, that is what we have to go on. And we don't know how much information Bob and Ed was extracted by these note writers. And I do believe it's plural. And Bob, I'll let you continue on.
One thing that is also, I just based on, I don't have a extensive history of ransom note analysis, but the note's long, and the amount of information there is, again, not necessarily symptomatic of the way a legitimate ransom note would be written. It's way too, there's just too much information there. And I look at it and think that, okay, maybe a lot of that is necessary, but a lot of it's not. And so again, to me, it gives the impression of what somebody that's not involved thinks the ransom note should or would look like if it was legitimate. It's just not symptomatic of that type of thought process. The other thing is that it's not casual language. That's the way I would describe it. It's fairly formal the way that it's written, and it gives me, again, kind of gives rise to the possibility that this was dictated in a different language and then into a translating app, and then this is the way that it came out. Does that make sense? Not necessarily AI, but some of the wording in here and some of the sentence structure and the formality of it sounds to me like it was dictated into a translator in a different language, and then this is what popped out the other side, and they copied and pasted it in. I could be wrong, but
I totally agree. I agree that that's a strong possibility. I do agree. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. Yeah, with like a Google Translate, and then and that could account for some of the setup here, the syntax.
Yeah. Let me just say hello to a couple people in the chat. Thinking for myself, thank you for being here. I know you said you got to go. Good to see everybody. Kristen, thank you for being here. Lexi, Beamer, Jenny, thank you for being here. Heavy Hook, always a pleasure. Great to see everybody. Nina, thank you for being here. Lieutenant Bill Kilgore, thank you for being here. We see everybody in the chat. We're just trying to get through the contents of these two notes and the analysis by Lieutenant Bob Shaffer. So we are going to take your questions at the last 10 to 15 minutes. So please, if you can, hang around to the end, and then we will take your questions live in the chat. Also, thank you to the replay viewers, the folks who sent super chats. There's been several of them that have come across. Melissa, thank you for your note, and thank you for the 10 from Jenny. Appreciate it. Going to buy yourselves a Coke on me. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for the note. Lisa, appreciate it. She said the FBI should have been called in ASAP. Yeah. That should have been the first thing that Sheriff Nanos did once he saw the enormity of what he had. And they knew that early on, but they chose to just deal with it in-house. Lisa, thank you for the 20. We appreciate you. And thank you for everybody being here. Moderators are doing a great job. Not that there's a lot of work out there, but we appreciate you keeping the chat classy. Just Say When, great to see you. Diane Hubbard, Cheryl, and Lexi. Zubon, please, if you can, I'm gonna save this message, but we'll get to them at the end of the show. All right, Bob, let's continue on with the second page. No?
Yeah. One last thing about this one. I know it was mentioned before about the USD designator at the end of the dollar amount, and that really stood out as unusual. And to designate US dollars would suggest that this might be somebody from outside the country that isn't used to dealing with US dollars. So that's a possibility that a person should, or an investigator should consider. So,
yeah, definitely stood out right away. And some of the folks in the chat are saying that there was no mention of her medical condition. We know that she was 84 years old, had mobility issues, and also there was that urgent call for her to be found or brought home early on because she cannot survive without this particular heart medication. So that's not mentioned in any of these notes, but there is something in that second page that the second note is quite troubling, and you do believe this is from a different person, right, Bob?
Well, it's a possibility. First of all, I just look at the differences, and the greeting is more realistic. and it's to the family rather than just Savannah alone. And even though she's been the front person representing the family, it was addressed to the family, and so that's different. The other is that, and I'll go back to the word "we." This little note is only 4 lines long. The other one is 12 lines long, so it's significantly long, or 3 times as long. But yet the word "we" is used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 times, and that shows me commitment. Unlike the other one where they used passive language, this one, the author committed to nearly everything that they said. And that is more consistent with a truthful thought process, lack of intent to deceive. So that alone, and without really going into it in depth, that word "we" is extremely significant from the statement analysis perspective. The other, what was it? Fully grasp. Oh, we did not fully grasp the seriousness of her physical condition. Again, extremely formal language. And I think it can just tell us something about the thought process of the person who wrote it. I think casual language versus formal language. Casual would say, "We didn't know how sick she was," something like that. But this is extremely wordy and formal, and again, it leads me to suspect that maybe this, like the other one, could have been written with a translator. The phrase "she is buried in nature now," that's just bizarre. I mean, it's just bizarre. And
Some people
I can see where if somebody wrote that in a foreign language and it used a translator, they wouldn't know whether that was bizarre in English or not. And so, yeah, and so I think that there's all these little bits of language evidence that lead up to my suspicion these people or person is from outside the country. One thing that in line 2, right at the end of the first full line, says, "We never intended to hurt her." And I thought that was unusual to say, because in the other note, it said, "We're going to kill her." It's 2 exact opposing thought processes. The actual ransom note says, "We're going to kill her if we don't get what we want." And this one says, "We never intended to hurt her." And the word "hurt," we see that a lot when, and you've experienced it interviewing suspects, where, "You did it, didn't you? You killed her, or you killed him," or whatever. They said, I didn't mean to hurt her." It's like, you didn't hurt her, you killed her. They use that language to soften the impact of what they did. They don't want to be responsible for a death. And so they use language that makes them feel better and doesn't create as much emotion. So they soften the language. Like "perished" in the second line, when "she perished." That's a really unusual word. Really unusual. "She died shortly after." That's, yeah. Or "she passed away." Perished is it's not a word I would expect somebody that's well versed in the English language to use. It's almost like, I don't want to say poetic, but it's kind of, it's just way too formal and way too lacy, kind of, glittery.
I agree.
It's not, it's in this "buried in nature" now. That's just.
This is a translation issue.
I think so.
I've seen this time and time again, even in the work I do overseas, where we have to have our American English translated into the various languages, that, whether it's Arabic, or it could be Farsi, or it could be Tagalog, Indonesian, Thai. Those types of translators are terrible at translating things like this.
Yeah.
And it becomes more formal sometimes, and then forget about it when you start using scientific terms. Then the translator is lost.
Yeah.
So but just based on those, and again, it's really short. There's not, which is another clue. In the first note, you notice there was all kinds. I mean, it's just riddled and saturated with linguistic signals, we call them. The second one, there's kind of a shortage of that. There's not much there, and that's what I look for is signs of deception. This one is relatively clean, meaning there really is not, except for a couple random occurrences, signs of deception. So the lack of marking, the hieroglyphics they put in, the circles, the squares, the line, the lack of that, and the lack of notes in the margin there suggests that it's from a largely a truthful thought process. So in my opinion, this one it lends more credibility to this one than the other one.
Let's go to the chat and see who feels that this is a foreign translation. Put a 1 in the chat if you feel it is not. This is somebody writing it out that's trying to, grasp at these bigger words or use different words. Put a 2. I'm going to put a 1 in the chat because it did feel like that to me immediately after reading this. I felt like it was somebody outside the country or from outside the country, and again, trying to be an opportunist to get some money. But this short second note, is not asking for anything. It was just like, I'm really sorry, but your mom died while we took her out of her house in the middle of the night. But it is what it is. And I think everyone's going to have varied opinions on this. And that's really all we're left to do is to, speculate and grasp at straws. But the real thing is that everyone's asking the question, Ed and Bob, why after 6 months, when we already knew about the contents of these 2 notes, would Sheriff Nanos now put that out? Did he just do it to do something? Ed, I'll go to you first.
Well, like in the case of the Unabomber, they put out his manifesto in the hopes that someone would recognize the writing, the handwriting, the style of writing, the context, the syntax, how the person is speaking. In this case, you don't have that because this was an email, right? This was, typed up on an email and sent via the internet. Okay.
Yeah, it was a message board for like on our website. If you want to send DutyRon a message, fill out this form. That's what it was.
Okay, so you're not going to get that kind of information that they were able to get from the Unabomber's handwritten note. But as you can see with Lieutenant Bob, we do get some things out of releasing it, such as the possible person or persons that wrote this may be from another country or may speak another language, English not being their predominant language, and then using a translator to try to get the message to the Guthries.
Yeah, agreed. There was a news report, I just want to break this up here just for a second, that the Pima County Sheriff contradicted himself one day before releasing these notes. And I want to go and play that just to give everybody a little bit of a break from the statement analysis for a second, because I found it interesting because I missed this because I'm not like, I don't know about anybody else here, but I'm not watching everything that's put out on this because there's so much garbage that's being put out. Ed, I know I'm not alone in this thought. Like I did in the beginning, try to watch as much of the reporting as I could, but when I'm watching them, just redundantly go over and over things. So I've skipped on watching things, but this here particular report was interesting because maybe it skipped a lot of people and people didn't see this. But let's take a listen quick.
Show co-host Savannah Guthrie made another desperate plea to the public over the weekend for information regarding her missing mother, Nancy, who disappeared from her Tucson, Arizona home more than 6 months ago. In a social media post, Guthrie wrote in part, quote, "We are begging for help. We are desperate. We need someone to come forward." Last Friday, the Pima County Sheriff's Department released 2 notes that appear to have been sent by the same person or group believed to be Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper. They were sent to the CBS station in Tucson in February. The second note indicated Guthrie died shortly after she was taken. But one day before the notes were made public, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano said this to CBS News' Jonathan Vigliotti.
Is Nancy Guthrie alive, or based on everything that you have right now?
I have nothing to indicate she's dead. I don't have a body. I don't have a burial site. I don't have any note.
So, did we catch that there, folks? Everybody in chat, I know my investigators here caught that. This was one day before he released the note on the 6-month mark of this investigation. These notes were sent in February, folks. So he was asked by a reporter on one day prior, and he said, "We don't have a body. We don't have a burial location. We don't have a note." Well, Bob, on page 1, we have a note that says we're going to kill her. Mm-hmm. And then the second page confirms that she perished. But we don't know if that's true or not true. But he contradicted himself here. This is further making the public perception of this sheriff diminish, because he contradicts himself left and right. Ed, you know this.
The sheriff that couldn't shoot straight.
Yeah. Amazing.
You know, it's just based on experience, the head of the department, whether it's a police department, sheriff's department, typically doesn't have all the information that they need, but they want to be in the spotlight. And he would have been more well-versed to have a PIO or somebody, maybe the captain, lieutenant overseeing the investigation, who has all that information and can give out accurate information. But to me, this just gives the impression that he wanted to be the front person and doesn't have all the information that he needed. And he just has this, he probably gets briefed every day on it, and that's all the information that he's got. And I think it was a mistake not having somebody that's probably more well-informed.
He has a public information
press release. Yeah.
He has a public information officer.
Yeah.
This is a medium-sized police department, and he shouldn't be the one who's speaking, because he's not a good speaker.
Is Nancy Guthrie alive, or based on everything that you have right now?
I have nothing to indicate she's dead. I don't have a body. I don't have a burial site. I don't have any note.
How could he not have been briefed on that note?
So real quickly, because I'm an old man and I'll forget, he went from "we don't" to "I don't." He changed the pronouns. He went from "we don't have this, we don't have that," or "we don't have any indication that she's dead." And then he said, "I don't have a burial site. I don't have." So when he went from "we" to "I," that's symptomatic of deceptive thought. And so I know that's a technicality, but that struck me as he changed it from "we" to "I," and that's inconsistent. And I think he was, to me, suggests that he's aware that what he's saying wasn't completely accurate.
Interesting.
Is Nancy Guthrie alive, or based on everything that you have right now?
I have nothing to indicate she's dead. I don't have a body. I don't have a burial site. I don't have any note.
Anna Schechter joins us now. She covers crime for CBS News. Anna, what's going on here? I mean, you and I note the obvious contradiction.
Well, he could have said, Jonathan, there is this second ransom note that we are taking very seriously that indicates that Nancy Guthrie passed away, and there's this admission of guilt in a way and feeling sorry about it and saying she's buried in nature. That would have been the more upfront way of handling this. But instead, he said there's no note. And then the next day released both notes in full. So it's just more of the same, really, that we've seen from Sheriff Nanos. He sometimes trips over his words, sometimes contradicts himself. So it's been an interesting run reporting on this for the last 6 months.
Well,
with you,
certainly.
Lindsay.
I mean, this office has been thrust into the spotlight on such a high-profile story, but why wouldn't they release the ransom notes earlier? Or maybe the fact that the hair that was found in the home was tested and DNA came back inconclusive. They learned that in June. They just released it. Why now?
Well, I think hindsight's 2020, and the FBI sources I talked to, recently retired FBI agents, are saying it's so late in the case, it actually would have been better to have released it earlier. I think that Chris Nanos released it because, one, journalists have essentially put this out and influencers have put out a lot of the content of the note. And two, I think they ran into leads that didn't lead anywhere. They reached the 6-month mark and they have nothing to lose. They're desperate for that tip that cracks this case open. My reporting indicates they really don't know who sent these notes, who abducted Nancy Guthrie. They don't have any good lead on an ID.
I want to add something to this because, and I'll put us back on now. You know, reporters report, right? But to this reporter's credit, this is a New York reporter. I communicate with Aaron Cross on a regular basis, not every day, but I periodically will ask him. This is the president of the Pima County Deputies Association. He's an active sergeant, and I ask him every so often, is there anything new? I don't ask him to divulge if there's anything new. I just ask him yes or no. Is there any new leads? And he is always telling me no, that they have nothing. So, I mean, she's pretty close to spot on that they potentially have not a lot. Because if they did, we'd have an arrest. We would have an arrest. And releasing these notes at 6 months when the news and bloggers and people have had the contents of this, including TMZ and all those clowns at Harvey Levin's network, have put the note out. Ed, what are you doing?
I got a splinter.
Oh my God. I'm watching Ed with his head down, thinking like you look like you were doing surgery there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it out.
Oh my God. All right. I hope you can get it out. So it's just affirming to me that they really don't have a lot, and this is sad. It's sad that we're at this point in the case and there's nothing new. Let's go to the chat because I want to get everybody's thoughts. Jeff is in the building. Good to see you. Ed needs to let it fly. Yeah. So hashtag Ed, hashtag Bob, and hashtag DutyRon with your questions. Ed, earlier on in the chat, in the live stream, everyone was complimenting you on how slim and sleek you're looking nowadays, and stealth.
Yes, I did lose a lot of weight, folks. And on my own volition. Not that I'm sick or anything, but a little scare with this. Remember back in the day, I was told I had a heart attack when in reality I didn't have a heart attack. And at that point in time, I said, I'm going to get myself back into shape.
Yeah. And you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. I'm trying to catch up to you a little bit. So I'm going slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race, right, Lieutenant Bob?
I wouldn't know. I haven't lost any weight lately. So,
but you don't need to. Karen believes that the notes are phony. I tend to agree with you. Yeah. Here, Detective Wisdom says, I think Nancy's family is indirectly involved. Nancy's disappearance. A lot of people feel that way. And listen, Detective Wisdom, you're not alone. I personally don't feel that way, but I don't poo-poo anybody's thoughts or opinions. There's a lot of people who feel that the son-in-law has something to do with it. But we're not here to point fingers. We're here to talk about the statement analysis on this live stream. But we appreciate everybody's and we respect everybody's thoughts. Eileen's complimenting you on a great job, Ed Wallace. Ed is very sharp.
Atkins and keto.
But he said, Peter says, Ed is very sharp, but it sounds like he met his match with that splinter.
Yes. After I'm off the show, I'm going to have to perform surgery.
Yeah. So here, we don't have confirmation of this because I didn't see the colors inverted, but I know that Kash Patel released the FBI released the video. If you have a link to that from the FBI itself with releasing the video with the colors inverted, I'd like to see it. But I definitely wouldn't want to see it if it was broadcast on another podcast or on another social media platform. If you have it straight from the FBI, as you said in this comment, I would definitely love to see that. So thank you for that comment. Here's a question from Pilot Mode. Question: has anyone else wondered how Savannah knew she left in her pajamas? My grandma had too many gowns to count at 90 years old. Good question. Possibly her sister Annie might know more because she's there living in that area. Maybe Annie knew her bedtime routine and what she wore and so forth. I don't know. But there could be many possibilities. Ed, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny because I have to laugh because I have had my parents over my house in New Jersey for the last 30 days. To the point that my father now has squatters' rights and refuses to leave my beach house to come back to Staten Island, New York. But that said, so my mom, she has a bunch of these nightgowns and everything that she wears every night. And then, we have to do the laundry, and I get to see all of these things that I normally didn't see in the past. And I couldn't imagine she had that many nightgowns.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does one account for that? How would they know?
Yeah. We don't know. We don't know. There could be information that was maybe shared. Maybe I have no idea.
That has to be inside information.
Yeah, we don't know anything about the dynamic of this family, how close they are, how not close they are. What we do know is that they didn't pay for a subscription on their Ring camera, and that was a major mistake in this case. And I only wish that they did have the cloud storage. Race Rodeo, thank you so much. I'm doing okay. I'm still not 100%, but I'll give you updates on that. Go ahead.
Say the pajama part could be what's missing, meaning it's not what they know she had, it's what they know she didn't have. And if they went through and said, is there anything missing here? Yeah, this pair of pajamas that she wears all the time is gone. So there's an assumption that maybe that's what she was wearing. That's how I look at it. So
yeah,
I don't think it's...
Could be. Mary Ann K, she said, DutyRon, do you think Nanos doesn't believe the notes are real? And that's why he said no notes. If he didn't, as an investigator, as an active investigator, it's not your job to publicly say, I believe that these notes are real or not real. It's up to the actual homicide investigators and the people who are working the case, not the elected sheriff. So I believe that if he had thoughts that these weren't real and he knew the next day he was going to release them, because you don't just say, I think tomorrow morning I'll release it. They planned this stuff out. So he knew he was going to release it. He was on that media blitz. And it's just another one of his fumbles, and another one of his, we call it word salad. I call it that he doesn't really know what he's saying or what he's going to say when he gets interviewed. So it's an interesting thing. But thank you for that, Marianne. I appreciate it. The notes are fake, says Sweets, and from two different people, most likely outside the USA, using translators, trying for an opportunity to get money. I agree with that. What am I hearing? Is that the Beagle?
Yes, that's Linus.
Linus the
The
beagle.
the beagle howls, the lab barks.
Oh my God. There it is. Here's a question for Lieutenant Bob. Do you think this will ever be solved? That comes from Rock and Roll 888. You read a channel member. Bob, you got the center stage.
Not with the information that they have now. And it's just my, I guess, experience that they're going to have to go all, and if they haven't already, all the way back to the origins of the crime, which is the victimology. Why her? And how did somebody know that she even existed? And so there had to be some type of, so I think if it's going to be solved, they have to go clear back pre-crime and really closely examine what was going on there. And if there's some way, if these two notes are not authentic, then what was the point of taking her? Except the kidnappers, she died, and it's like now we have a dead person. It doesn't make any sense that, what am I trying to say here? That if they kidnapped her for ransom, then there's going to be a ransom note. And if these two are fake, then where's the real one? And so I think there's going to be a technology element to it. And I don't mean necessarily DNA, but I'm talking about electronic technology tracing communications back, if that's possible. But I think the victimology is going to be one thing. Who did she know? Who did she interact with? And then there's going to be this whole thing was with the Bitcoin and all that stuff. It was pretty carefully, well, I don't know if I really trust that note anyway, but it's hard to believe that somebody just lucked out and isn't going to get caught. Either they were extremely careful or extremely lucky. And so I'd say that the chances of it being solved anytime in probably the rest of my lifetime are probably pretty slim.
Wow.
Unless somebody comes forward, and all it takes is an angry girlfriend or, I'm going to get back at him. And that happens a lot. That could.
I think that there's also a strong possibility that she was killed for another reason, financially, or for some other reason other than a ransom. And these ransom notes were just opportunists trying to get a buck from outside the country. And the real reason that she was taken and killed was for another, for a different purpose. And that's going to be up to the investigators to find out and figure out. Let's go to some of the super chats real quick because a couple came in. Jeff says Ed needs to let it fly. We already covered that one. Jeff sends in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Eileen and Jeff. Ed looks great. #Ed. Is there any chance there's any evidence remaining inside that house? Good question. I think
there's always a chance. It all depends on the person. The crime scene investigation is only good as the person conducting the crime scene investigation. All right. So the more training and experience the investigator have, the better the chances of locating. The more technology the investigator has, the better the chances are of locating evidence. Okay. It's just, you have to be patient, and you have to dot every I and cross every T, and use every bit of technology you can, and common sense.
Yeah. Agreed. And Ed, you discussed with me, I think I kind of walked you into it. I posed the question, if the Guthrie family hired you and you were able to go in there, would you go in there, and would you do a complete workup? And I think you said yes, if my memory serves me correct.
Well, I mean, I would go there and give it a look. And if I saw something at that point, I stop and notify law enforcement to come out and deal with this. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to move it. And I've done this in the past where I was hired by defense attorneys to review crime scene investigations. And I've gone to crime scenes that were 18 months old and found evidence that was missed the day of the crime. Okay. It happens. Again, like I said, the crime scene investigation is only as good as the individual doing the investigation.
Yeah. 100%. Hey, Bob, before we wrap it up, do you have anything else that you'd want to add to the two notes, or did you cover all the points?
I think I covered everything. Yeah, without getting
Absolutely.
Without guessing. I said what I know, not what I'm guessing. I wouldn't want to guess. Yeah, I feel confident with what he said.
We also appreciate you hanging out with us as we spitball here and go over some possibilities from the law enforcement perspective, because you do have great insight as it pertains to your experience and so forth. Here we go from Ruby to Ed. Ruby says, #Ed, I find it hard to believe that a law enforcement officer since 1977, she's talking about nanos, would make those kinds of mistakes.
Well, nanos. What's his background in criminal investigations? What's his background in forensics? Okay, yeah. How much experience has he had? From what I can tell, he's got a lot of experience being suspended,
and in trouble with private departments and so forth. Yeah. He doesn't have a much, and I tried to get from Sergeant Aaron Cross some of his background. Right? We know he worked his magic in getting into the corrections because he had a shady past. He went from corrections to patrol to the police department side, the sheriff's department side, and then worked his way up in the ranks. But he is an elected official. He was elected to the position of sheriff, so he is an elected official till 2028. So he's there until further notice. And if I lived in Pima County, I wouldn't feel great about having an incompetent sheriff. And unfortunately, he showed that he's incompetent. And I hate to say that. I really don't like saying that, but it's the truth. So it is what it is. And people are asking for a new button on my Stream Deck that says numbnuts.
Bueller.
That's good enough for me right now. Hashtag numbnuts in the chat. Everybody can flood the chat with hashtag numbnuts, spelled all one word. Numbnuts, nanos. Nanos.
Forget about it.
Yeah. K Music Taylor, we love you back. Thank you for being here. People are saying he cheated to get in office. There was a recall. It was that close that there was a recall on the last election. So he is an elected official. He is the face of the department, but he's representing this case on an international stage, and he's doing a really horrible job at it, in my opinion. And I think most will agree. All right. Let's wrap it up. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to thank Lieutenant Bob Shaffer, retired statement analysis expert, for coming on the show and giving us an hour of his time at such a short notice. So thank you, Bob, for being here. I know we always love and appreciate, the audience loves and appreciates your input. And guys, if you're watching on the replay, leave us a comment down below in the comment section. Let us know what you thought of our special guest for tonight. I want to thank Ed for being here from New Jersey. He's out with his parents. As he said, they're now squatters in his house, but they're always welcome there. His parents are great people.
I got to go to court now to get him out.
Do you go to court in New Jersey, or do you go to court in Staten Island?
No, I got to go in Jersey to get him out now.
They're in both. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, you'd have to go to Jersey. I don't know. I don't know anybody that sits on the bench in Jersey. So, yeah,
no, I'm not going to get them kicked out of my house.
Of course not. All right. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to thank you for being here. We want to send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the investigators, to the Guthrie family, so they get some answers and bring their beloved mother home. That's what's important here, is the victim and their families. We say that's on all the cases, but we also send strength to the investigators on the front line, from the FBI to the Pima County sheriffs that are assigned to this, the deputies that are assigned to this case, and everybody and anyone who has information that's willing to call it in. So I have the number scrolling down below on the screen. If you have any information, no lead, too little, too big, send them all in there and let them sort it out. Ed, you have anything to add before we kill this live stream?
Stop breathing down my neck.
Hold on.
Say good night to the
Stop breathing down my neck.
There you go.
That's the bag, boys. Oh, Ed. All right. Very good. I want to thank everybody for being here, and we'll see you guys soon. Bob, we'll see you. We'll talk soon.
Anytime. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Ed. Yep.
Great insight.